welcome to today's webinar. So good to see everybody. I mean, I can't mention everybody, but let me just try to mention people randomly. I can see Oladayo, welcome. Oladuni, Oyinijesu, Fumbi, Fetayo, Feikemi, Adebayo, welcome. Who else is here? I'm trying to see who else is here. Welcome to Temitope Oluwaseyi. Welcome Olatunji. Welcome everybody basically. And I'm super happy to be here because this is so much of an anticipated event and I'm so happy that it's finally happening. And not to waste so much of our time, let's just go right into it. But before then, I'd like us to welcome our speaker, Eniola Agbaoye. Eniola Agbaoye. Thank God I'm a Yoruba girl. I can pronounce that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Eniola Agbaoye is actually, so while I was reading about him, he has actually worked with like quite a number of companies. He has been part of people's big story, like he has been part of people's success stories. And I really like us to hear from the horse's mouth himself. I want him to like introduce himself. There's an adage that you cannot nobody can tell your story better than you can or better than you would do. So Eniola Agbaoye, I want you to, in like very few words, please introduce yourself, what you do, and every other thing that you think we need to know about you.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Eniola. She has mentioned that I think I have like over 10 years experience in risk management, finance, tax. I've done close to like 9 to 10 years in consulting. I've worked in Big Four. I think I worked in two Big Fours, one Big Four, one Big Five. Um, Risk management, tax, finance, all that. I've also done some small gigs by the side. So I have wide experience in financial institutions, finance,
Okay.
tax, and risk management.
Okay.
That helps.
Fantastic. Okay. All right. So Eniola, what other thing have you like not mentioned here that you would like us to know? Something random. Let's just start from there. Something very random. Maybe like your best food or something very random. Let's just hear it.
Very random,
Yes. Very random
very
stuff.
random. So I
Yes.
box, so that should help. I'm into
What do you
boxing.
say?
I'm into boxing, so that
Wow.
should,
So I
yeah,
should
yeah,
be
that should help.
careful of myself. Let me just be very careful
Not
here.
necessarily, not necessarily. Pretty amateur, but I'm into that.
Okay, an amateur. Okay, but that's very nice to know about you, Anila. Thank you very much once again for coming and for honoring our invitation. We really appreciate you. So, Anila, I just want to ask something before we like dive into this. So, if not because you have like been into the financial sector like all along, I saw your profile and I was like, what? I was just very surprised. So, if not the financial sector, what other thing do you think you do so well in?
So if not financial sector, I felt that I've done well owning my own business.
Okay.
Maybe I would equate myself to the typical Igbo trader where I'll be
Mm.
doing buying and selling. If
Oh,
not, if not 5 9 to 5 work, I would have
okay.
been into heavy trading, buying and selling.
Oh, nice. The buying and selling still involves calculation. But you like calculation a lot. You like money a lot. But it's a very good thing. Every one of us, we all like we all like money. So now let's go straight into it without wasting so much of our time. What's the difference between inflation, stagflation, and hyperinflation? I mean, the reason why we've come up with this topic and you're the best person to help us speak to people on this is because COVID happened. A lot of businesses suffered. Funny how a lot of businesses are still suffering. Some maybe they are good to say it, maybe they want to say it, some might not even want to share it. And then this is just us, the Overbank 3D team, wanting to say, let's give people chances. Let's teach them, let them know what they need to do in this period, inflation period. So back to that question, what is the difference between inflation, stagflation, and hyperinflation?
Well, for inflation is common to us all. Currently, obviously, we know that we are going through inflation in Nigeria. Inflation is
Yeah.
where there is an increase in the price of goods and services. case in
Okay.
point where you can have a lot of people complaining about the prices of things they are buying in the market. If you
Yes.
go online, you keep seeing complaints of, oh, I bought this Jericho rice for this amount last month. This is
Mm.
the current price of
Mm.
it. Or you see
Yeah.
stuff on Instagrams where you see people talking about how much meat they can buy with maybe 2,000 or 5,000 naira. So
Mm.
typically, inflation is just talking about increase in the prices of goods and services and the reduction in the value of money. What that implies is that in terms of your purchasing power, what you could
Yeah.
get with 100 naira as of last month or last 2 months, you basically can't
Mm.
get that with 100 naira now.
Mm.
And you could recall from based on the generation you fall within, you could hear some of our
Yeah.
parents talking about, oh, with 1,000 naira, I could buy a
Mm.
brand new Peugeot car.
Mm.
You can't even, you're going
That's
to be
right.
look if you go to the
Yeah.
market with 1,000 naira to even get a scrap car. It's not possible. So
Mm.
that kind of talks about what inflation is.
Mm.
For hyperinflation,
Mm.
hyperinflation is just saying it's an excessive, aggressive, continuous increase in the value, in the prices of commodities. And just to state, Nigeria is
Yeah.
not currently going through hyperinflation. There are
Mm.
some few countries that have gone into hyperinflation because for hyperinflation, the value of money, the cost of goods and services are
Yeah.
doubling on a daily
Mm.
basis.
Yeah.
I'll give you three
Yes.
cases. I'll give you Zimbabwe.
Mm.
Zimbabwe had instances where if you buy a loaf of bread today,
Mm.
by
Yes.
the end of the day or the next day, if you buy a loaf of bread for
Mm.
100 naira, by the next day it's 200 naira. So it is
Wow.
like more than a 50% increase in the value of goods and services. Then you
Mm.
have Hungary. After the World War II, every 12 hours, their currency, the price of goods was doubling. So anything
Wow.
you bought as of the morning, by evening, the price is doubling. That's hyperinflation.
Totally.
It
Wow.
is it is intense, aggressive. Nobody prays for hyperinflation. You've had that
Wow.
happen in some countries. Okay. Now for
Mm.
stagflation, I would say that we likely are going through stagflation in Nigeria, but with a clause to say we are not yet there, but the way we are going, we may get there. Stagflation is saying that one,
Mm.
there's going to be inflation, which is the
Mm.
price of goods and services are going up. That's one. Two,
Yeah.
you have high unemployment rates. Okay.
Yes.
Unemployment rates in Nigeria is going high. And three, you have little to no economic growth. If you look at some
Mm.
of the indices that have been published by Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, and if you look
Mm.
at maybe the year growth, month-on-month growth, we're not really growing. We're having
Yes.
declines in most of the major sectors.
Mm.
So inflation is the price of the goods and services are going up, reduction in the value of money.
Yeah.
Stagflation, excessive, uncontrollable growth in the price of goods and services. Why
Mm.
stagflation is saying one, there's inflation, two, there's unemployment, then three, there is slow economic growth, little to no economic growth.
Mm.
Okay.
I mean, you've like almost said everything that's, or maybe touch based on things that, or like the signs that will say, oh, this particular country is going through stagnation or stagflation. This particular country is going through inflation, and this particular country is going through hyperinflation. But then I really want you to delve like deeper into it. Like, what are like the telltale signs that an economy is going through hyperinflation? Because that's like the highest a country can get to, right? After you've gone through inflation, you've gone through stagflation, and then you're now on the higher, they are like the highest level. That's the hyperinflation. And a perfect example is Zimbabwe. Like, and like at every hour, I think the hungry is still fine. It's not fine, but it's kind of better because you said is about 12 hours, as the day progresses. But then for Zimbabwe, that's a lot. And I just want you to delve really into the hyperinflation.
Okay. So I may go a bit technical. So for
Okay.
inflation, first thing you have to understand with in itself, there are all subsets of inflation. Do you understand?
Mm.
Inflation stagflation and hyperinflation, they're all birds of the same feathers. But you just have some extreme cases, some different scenarios. Okay. But you also have to understand that how do you measure inflation?
Okay.
Um, as an individual, as a business owner, you can say if the prices of goods and services are going up, that's inflation. But you have to understand that inflation is constant in life. The prices of goods
Yes.
and services will keep going up. Do you understand?
Yes.
So
Yes.
what decides the fact that okay, we are going through a period of where inflation is really high, or we are going through a
Mm.
period of where there's stagflation or hyperinflation, is that there are two indices used. So you have what they call the CPI and the PPI. The CPI is the Consumer Price Index, and why the PPI is the Producer Price Index. Typically, if you read anything on macroeconomics, if you read anything on when Nigeria Bureau of Statistics is talking about inflation, if you read anything on currently there was like a meeting by the Federal Reserve, that's like the CBN in America, and they held like a quarterly meeting and they kind of
Okay.
did like a forecast and spike in interest rates. So if you read
Mm.
anything on that, you see them talking about what CPI is, the Consumer Price Index. The Consumer
Mm.
Price Index is just saying how would you do a percentage change in the prices of goods, a
Goods.
percentage
Yeah.
change in the so that is used to, the more high it is, the more the degree of inflation. Okay, so
Mm.
these are indices. Why the PPI is basically for domestic producers to say, looking at my input,
Okay.
how significantly has my input changed? Just to state, basically, a lot of people, most economists, they still majorly rely on CPI because CPI is
Mm.
like the basis, it's like the foundation. The CPI
Yes.
flows into the PPI. So once they do the CPI index, they say, okay, how has the percentage change of prices of goods and services? The higher it
Mm.
is, then they're trying to tell you that okay, that's the level of inflation. That's just giving you a high level overview of how
Mm.
inflation is measured. So typically when
Measure.
people ask you, oh, there's inflation, well, how do they know there's
Mm.
inflation? Typically you say that, okay, they've done like some CPI. They've done the CPI based on the consumer price index, and this is based on how they've gotten current rate of inflation. To go
Okay.
into your questions on tail size of how do you know there's an inflation? So I'll just
Mm.
bucket it into one and not
Okay.
say that this. The first one is in changing the cost of production and distribution. So
Mm.
as an individual or a business owner, if let me give you an example.
All right.
I'm a manufacturer,
Okay.
manufacture goods and services, which means there are inputs that come into my particular product. Or I'm involved in
Yeah.
the buying and selling, which means I buy, I sell. If
Mm.
my cost of production has increased,
Mm.
and I will tell you what leads to increase in cost of production. Currently, okay, let me not go into that yet. What goes into the cost of production? If my cost of production has increased, that's the sign of inflation. Where to say that I buy something for 10 naira
Mm.
and there's an increase in the price, and the increase is within a short period of time. Case in point, if you look at the beginning of this year compared to now, I would use a
Yes.
classic example that a lot of people on this call will be able to relate to, which is a bag
Okay.
of rice. Okay.
Mm.
For
Mm.
people in Nigeria, let's use bag of rice in Nigeria. We can all
Mm.
relate to bag of rice. Currently, I don't know
Yes.
what a bag of rice is, but I know that at the beginning of the year, if there's anybody that has an idea of what the bag of rice is at the beginning and now, you could help and tell us.
Mm.
Um, at the beginning of the year, I think the bag of rice was, I don't know, maybe like 30. But currently, I hear
Mm.
it's around close to 45 or more. So that typically gives you, and now I sell food or I sell processed foods. If that particular input has increased significantly over a period of time, that is an indication that there is inflation. Do you understand?
Inflation. Yeah.
The
Yes.
second bit is to also talk about increased demand for products and services. Now, a lot of people are wondering, are there increased demand?
Okay.
If
Somebody is saying in the comments now that a bag of rice at the beginning of the year was 28,000 and now it's 47,000 naira. Wow.
yeah,
Wow. That's quite a
yeah.
lot. Quite a lot. Sorry to cut you. I just had to take that comment.
Okay,
That's
interesting, interesting.
yeah.
So you could see that typically tells you that we're in inflation, because over time inflation should not, it should be manageable. It should be
Mm.
plus 5% tops. Okay, it shouldn't mark 5%. But now we are going into double digits. Current
Mm.
um inflation rate now by the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics is like 20.5%. So
Mm.
we are going into double digits in Nigeria. So that should give you a tail sign. Two is increased demand when the demand is high. Now you may
Right.
wonder why there will be increased demand. Obviously, the rate we are producing children is high. Aside that point, why would there be increased demand? For instance, you have oil for oil.
Mm.
Typically, your consumption of oil, of petrol, crude oil, what petrol, for instance,
Mm.
in a week, let's say I assume I buy 100 liters of petrol. Okay,
Week.
if I hear that there's going to be scarcity, I will
Yeah.
tend to go towards hot, right? So if I buy
Mm.
normal 100 liters of oil, petrol every week, because I hear there's scarcity, I will want to buy like what, maybe like 400 liters.
Yes.
What that
Yes.
does is not just what that does
Someone
is that
asked me a question. I think we'll take questions later. So if you have questions, please just jot them down. There's going to be a session for questions because I mean it's one of the reasons why we are here to also take our questions. But let's just jot them down. We are going to be asking questions much later. Sorry, Eniola, please can you go on?
that's
Yeah.
fine. So my train of thought. So I would tend to want to get like 400 liters. And that's like a ripple effect because most people would think that, oh, there's going to be scarcity. So let's hold more
Mm.
for, let's get more for. What that
Mm.
does is at that particular point in time, demand goes up. And typically, for people who have read economics and theory of economics, the
Yes.
law of demand and supply, when supply remains constant and demand goes high, and demand is higher, the price will increase. Same as vis-a-vis that when supply is going higher, the demand is constant. What that does is
Mm.
that the price will drop because there's more
Drop.
supply than demand. For people who are not economic students, you can also just ask me all your questions and just drop it. Okay. So
Okay.
those are the telltale signs of inflation, where
Mm.
you have increased demand. And we may be wondering, is there really increased demand? If the supply has reduced, obviously, and the demand, that's another telltale. We have
Okay.
all have the Russia-Ukraine war, and a lot of people are saying, I mean, Nigeria, how does the Russia and Ukraine war impact us? In case you don't know, Russia is one of the top three oil producing countries in the world.
Countries
Top
of
three,
the world.
yeah.
Yeah.
Top three producing world. And if they refuse to produce oil, it will
Oil.
impact the supply. Even
Yes.
though
Yes.
oil prices have kind of regularized and declined in over the last 2 to 3 weeks, by when the Russian Ukraine war started, Russia stopped supplying to EU. You guys stopped buying from Russia. So there was a high demand for crude oil. And based on
Yeah.
that, crude oil price increased. Although currently
Increase.
in the last 2 to 3 weeks, there's been a decline. So this, and trust me, even as Nigerians, for Nigeria as a whole, if crude oil prices increase, the global economy and for people who use crude oil as input into what they do, they buy those
Mm.
crude oil prices and it increases and it impacts what the day-to-day they impact the day-to-day business owners, individuals. So what you
Mm.
can say is, what are the tail signs? What do you see that there's inflation? One,
Mm.
you would see that there's what's increased the price of more than double-digit increase in the price of
Mm.
goods and services. And two, you would see that there is increased demand. And then if there's low supply, if the supply has reduced. Just to
Mm.
mention, we're talking about goods and services.
Okay.
We're all aware that there's a bit of brain drain going on in Nigeria where a lot of people are leaving Nigeria and going outside the country. And what
Country.
that
Yes.
does is that for the specialized people
Mm.
who are still in Nigeria,
Mm.
their skill set is now in high demand.
Mm.
And if
Yes.
their skill
Yes.
set is in high demand, what that implies is that employers are now willing to pay a bit of a premium to
Mm.
get those people who are left in Nigeria to work for them. And
Yes.
what we've
Yes.
seen is that will invariably increase what wages and salaries, which is a major input in any organization. And you can see, especially guys in the IT space, guys in consulting, IT space, consulting. I'm tempted to say accounting space, but I can't say
Mm.
accounting spaces because that's a different space. Okay, but guys in consulting, guys in IT, you've seen a
The
huge demand
banking. Yeah.
for these guys because a lot of this. A lot of them are leaving the country, especially
Yeah.
also medical doctors.
Yes, 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 yes,
So what that implies
yes,
is that organizations would have to pay a bit higher to attract people who are still in Nigeria. And
mm,
typically, what that happens is that your input, which is wage and salaries, increase.
yes.
And once it
Christy.
increase, it will impact on your output, which is any service you are rendering or any goods you are producing or supplying.
Wow, wow. I mean, that's like in depth of that question. Thank you so much for going that deep and giving us like practical examples. Now, let's bring this back home. Let's bring this back to Nigerians because almost everybody on the call, our listeners, they are all Nigerians. So I want to ask you very practical questions. Like in practical terms, how can businesses thrive and stay profitable in a hyperinflated economy? And can the level of inflation in Nigeria be categorized as hyperinflated? I don't know if you want me to take that question again,
Yeah,
but then
no,
maybe I should take it again. I should take it again, right? Just so that every
no,
other
no.
person here is
Okay,
clear.
that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. Please do.
Yes. Okay. So in practical terms now, how can businesses thrive and stay profitable in a hyperinflated economy? And can the level of inflation in Nigeria be categorized as hyperinflated?
Okay. First of all, we're not in an hyperinflation Nigeria. Let's clear that. That's one. Secondly, I need to
Okay.
say this, okay? The views I
Okay.
have are strictly my views, okay? So you may
Okay.
disagree with it, which is fine, but just know the views are Eniola Barry's views are not related to any other person's views. I
Okay.
clearly think that we're not in an hyperinflation. Let me just clear that, okay? Because of the
Okay.
topic of this webinar. So clearly we're not in an hyperinflation in Nigeria.
Hmm.
Um, I'll address your question. Secondly,
Okay.
we are also not in a stagflation, although some analysts have come up to say, oh, look, if we are not careful, we're going towards a stagflation in Nigeria. But
Hmm.
nobody, CBN, Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, most of the reputable professors or economists in Nigeria, nobody has clearly said we are in a stagflation or
Hmm.
hyperinflation. What they are saying is
Hmm.
that, yes, there is inflation currently,
Okay.
you understand?
Okay.
It is
Okay.
high. Inflation in Nigeria is currently high. But if we do not manage it, then we will get into stagflation.
Hmm.
We have not gotten to the point where we are saying we're in hyperinflated. Okay.
Okay.
Now, before going to how businesses will thrive and stay profitable in a
Hmm.
very inflated economy, we need to first of all understand what are the effects of inflation on a business. How
Hmm.
do you say, how does inflation impact on a business? It will have been helpful to get some of the business owners respond that how has this inflation impacted on their own businesses
Businesses. Yeah.
in terms of how the cost has gone up. How has it? You can drop like a chart. It will be good to get your response to say
Okay.
how has this impacted on their business, even as an individual, as a salary earner. How is this inflation happening in Nigeria currently? How is it impacting me? I typically take a bus that is 200 naira. Now the bus
Exactly.
fare is now 400 naira. I
Hmm.
typically buy maybe two derikas or worth of rice. And currently, I can't buy two derikas of rice. If I want to buy two derikas of rice, I need to bring more money. My salary has remained the same, and
Hmm.
there has been naira has been devalued. Dollar is rising,
Hmm.
and my employer has not increased my salary. Do you understand?
Salary. Yes.
I can't save as much as I can save. So how has it impacted? It would be good to hear people's opinion to make it a bit interactive. Like how has it impacted you as an
Okay. Let me start
individual?
with myself. Let me start with
Okay.
myself. Because I'm a 9 to 5er, right? I have a 9 to 5 job. So the fact that we talked about prices of things, it now doubled, right? And for someone like me that does not have is I'm not mobile yet. All I do is try to jump buses if I'm going to work. And I take about 2 to 3 buses before I get to my destination, before I get to my office. Right. And then we have, on a normal day, I think the bus fare that would originally be, I think, about 300 naira. Now we are taking it for 700 naira. That's, in fact, that's even like more than double. So that's how it's affecting me. And I'm sure that a lot of other people who are listening to us right now would also have that that opinion or that experience as well. So this has actually affected us. Not to even talk of the things as a lady, you have to cook, you have to eat. Of course, you have to eat, and then you have to do a lot of things. You have to buy clothes, you have to, all these basic things to make life easier for you. You have to do all of these things. And if you get to the market now and begin to hear the prices of these things, you want to run away. You would literally want to run away. So how do somebody like me or people like me, how do we make this better for ourselves, or how like do we make Nigeria easier for us to live in? I know there are lots of people like me listening to us, so I'd like to hear that.
Okay. Um, great response. I can see how inflation is impacting on you. You know,
Yes.
I'm sure that if I was outside this forum, the first advice someone will tell you is go and start earning in FX. Stop earning in Naira. Do you understand? That
Mm,
would be the first advice. But that's
yeah.
that's not it. But it's good to hear other people's comments. Maybe you can just read other people's comments on this particular question or point.
Okay, so somebody is saying less savings. Inflation makes all of my income and savings less valuable. And that's on point actually. That's like the only comments that we've had. But if any other person wants to drop comments, please, I'd like us to do that as soon as possible. So this is very true. I can totally relate to this person. Like you know that you really want to stay on a budget, and you also still want to save. So it means that you cannot we can't say we want to do without food. We have to still eat, because if you think about it, there's like little or nothing you can do about your budget, especially on things that are really necessary for you to do. You have to really eat, you have to buy clothes. You can't be wearing like all the same clothes every time. I know that the point of management, would have to come into that. But there are some very, very basic things that we need to do. And we cannot really cut budget on those things, so to speak. So it means that we would have to, save less. That's just to, be on the same page with what this person is saying. Save less. Inflation makes all of our income savings less valuable. So I think someone else is saying can properly plan. Okay, this person is saying that if Etayo is saying I cannot properly plan ahead as today's price isn't tomorrow's price. That's fantastic. That's our situation. I think that even caps it all. We can't really plan ahead. Imagine someone that wants to get married now. You cannot even feed thousands of people, or maybe not e- not maybe not more, not up to that. But then if you're saying you want to have, I'm like being really practical here. Say you want to have 500 guests, that person will probably go to the village. That you're going to spend a whole lot. So you cannot really do things to your taste. You have to like be conscious of everything. So how do we get past this? And I don't think this is going to come down. I don't think the economy is going to be better for a while. I think it's even still going to be increasing, because every day, to be very honest, it keeps increasing. So how do we like get past this stage, or how do we manage ourselves?
Okay.
Yes.
Great stuff. I would say how you get. First of all, I would advise that before I advise, let me just say this, then go to what I want to say. Please
Okay.
stop keeping money in your account. A lot of
Hmm.
people have savings and they are putting money in their bank accounts.
Hmm.
At this point in time, if you are saving any money in your bank account without
Hmm.
any interest generated on it, you are
Hmm.
losing money, because
Yes. Yes.
the 100,000 or 1 million you saved 6 months ago is different. The cost of
Hmm.
rent has jacked up. If you were saving 1 million to say that, oh, I want to move into a new apartment,
Yeah.
rent is 1.5 or 2 million. I can
Yeah.
guarantee you that in the next 3 to 6 months, there's a likelihood that that rent of 2 million may have jacked up to 2.5 million
Hmm. Or more.
or more. I'm looking
Hmm.
at the real, just saying I'm still going to go back to the question. But
Hmm.
I also want to first of all dimension how inflation impacts us as an individual,
Hmm.
and two, as businesses.
Yeah.
First of all, your purchasing power. Sorry, I'm a Yoruba guy, so you may hear some Yoruba intonation. Bear with me.
It's
It's really
fine.
what it is,
Very
okay?
fine. Yes.
So your purchasing power, it kind of erodes your purchasing power. Like you mentioned, you could get a
Mm,
bag of rice with something thousand. Now it's close to 40K. There are higher prices. Prices of things have gone up. Goods and services, higher prices. If you are someone who normally orders goods from outside the country, it's now very difficult to do. The
cool. Very
latest iPhone 14 came out. Typically, when you buy an iPhone is $1,000. And
mm,
as of last year, $1,000 was still within the range of like 500 or 500 plus.
mm.
Black market, obviously, or para
Yes.
market,
Yes.
also, or 400, I think 400 or 500. So typically, like, I've gotten an iPhone for maybe like 450,000 last year. Now, if I'm bringing out money to get an iPhone, para market or black market, whatever you call it, it's 700,
Mm,
710, 715. Do you understand? So there are higher prices, the purchasing power really drops. A lot of us are cutting our expenses. If you typically used to take Uber, you start rethinking it. If you used to go for
exactly.
date nights, you kind of start
They,
reconsidering it. Um, for businesses, you have tighter project profit margins. Most of the profit margin of businesses has dropped because what we've seen is that some people have still maintained their selling price
okay.
and their cost price just keeps increasing. Okay.
Increasing.
Then you also have shortages of some of these products in the market. There is some form of artificial scarcity
Mm,
in the market.
mm,
Inflation rates also increase the cost of borrowing. The NPR
mm.
was increased to 14%. Typically, what the NPR does is monetary policy rate. It influences the rates financial institutions borrow to individuals or corporates and to everybody. So
Yeah.
if the Central Bank of Nigeria has increased the NPR, it means that the borrowing rate has increased.
Mm,
So now, typically, if you're getting, as of last year, I think the interest rate on OD was maybe, what was the interest rate again, right? I can't remember, but let's assume the interest rate was 12%. After the CBN has increased the NPR, the interest rate would be like maybe 16 to 19%.
same.
Okay.
Mm,
So cost of borrowings have increased. Just to put a disclaimer in that sense, is that it is not those people that are going to go and borrow in all those micro lending. Micro
mm,
lending borrowing is a Shylock sense of borrowing. So that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about borrowing in regulated means, such as borrowing from commercial banks, borrowing
mm.
from CBN regulated financial institutions, not
Institutions here.
all those Chinese lending companies. Just saying.
Mm,
Okay.
okay. Okay.
Now, for salary earners, how do you manage this? Like I said,
Mm.
try and earn in FX to upskill yourself so that you may be able to get better jobs.
Jobs. Okay.
What I realized in my career, so like I mentioned when I was saying this, that this is my point of view, which is wrong. I feel
Mm,
that for if you're working in a Nigerian institution,
mm.
I would say that you shouldn't. I I'm an advocate, so I don't know how to put
Okay.
this. I'm an advocate
Okay.
of not staying somewhere too long. I feel that 3 to 5 years, try and change your employer because
Mm,
over time there's been some studies that's proven that for individuals that have moved to different organizations, they earn
mm,
higher than their peers who have stayed one place. Okay,
mm,
just
mm.
saying. So you
Okay.
also need maybe to upskill, look for other
Okay.
revenue, other sources of income, side hustle, maybe try and start applying, just to CV, just to increase.
Okay.
There's nothing like increasing your income when there's inflation
Mm,
because everybody's focusing on the cost. Yeah, this cost is what you can manage, but try and
mm,
also focus on your income. For business owners, you will
mm,
have to adjust your pricing. That's a very
mm.
delicate thing for business owners adjusting their pricing because you now
Pricing.
have to look at your competitors, how much are they doing, how much is their price, so that your price will not, take you out of business. So
Mm,
reassess and just adjust your pricing. Look for other incomes for individuals.
okay.
Um, For business owners, let me focus on business owners because if you're an
Okay.
individual and you're a salary earner,
Hmm.
there are three or four recourse you have. One, go and find another job that will pay you more.
Hmm.
Two, go and negotiate with your employer to say there's inflation. So what a lot of employers are doing is that they are adjusting, those are good employers, they are adjusting their employees' salaries with
Salaries,
the
yeah.
inflation. So they are doing like 20 to 30% markup.
Okay.
Um, get a new job, discuss with your employer for new salary. Three, side hustle, get other sources of income. And then four, look for start earning in FX, look for opportunities. There are many platforms online where you can render services and
Okay.
right. For businesses, you also have to look at your product mix, product revenue mix. And I think this is a lot of things business owners in Nigeria do not do. There is no proper data analysis. And one of my skill sets is data analysis. And what that implies is that as a business, you look at your product and say, or your income and say, I am making 1 million. Where is
Hmm.
this 1 million coming from? If I'm operating in Abuja, Lagos, and Ondo, which
Hmm.
state is producing, giving me the highest level of income? Is 70% of my revenue coming from Lagos? Do you understand?
Hmm.
And
Yes.
imagine, if maybe my margin, your margin is your profit margin. If I'm making, maybe on my net profit margin, I'm making 10% in Abuja, 10% in Osun, and I'm making 20% in Lagos. Those are analyses you need to carry out on your income. Then you look at the
Okay.
products you are selling. Which of my products is selling the most? Which
Most.
of them do I turn over very quickly? Based on this
Hmm.
assessment, you cannot evaluate to say, look, I have a 20% net profit margin in Lagos.
Hmm.
Let me
Yes.
focus on this. I
Hmm.
understand that some of those locations would be there, but you just
Hmm.
put emphasis on where you're making more money.
Hmm.
And you also look at the location that is giving you the most business and also put
Hmm.
more energy on that. But for
On
instance,
that.
if Abuja is giving you 30% net profit margin and you've only been
Hmm.
focused 10% of your effort on that, that means that
Okay.
you need to now start, spreading out and expanding to
Hmm.
say, let's see
Funding,
if
yeah.
we can put in more resources in my Abuja
Hmm.
office because Abuja
Branch, yeah.
office is giving me 30% net profit margin.
Hmm.
So having an analysis and evaluation of your product and revenue mix will do you a lot of good. You have
Good.
100 products. Which product sells out within 7 days? Which
Hmm.
product sells out within 5 days? Some product will take 1 month. A product that takes 1 month on my shelf is not good for me because what I'm tying
Hmm.
down. So you
Money,
also
yeah.
need to look at this. Then you also talk about diversifying your revenue stream. Like
Hmm.
for individuals, go and get a side hustle. It's not that easy to get a side hustle, but
Hmm.
try and just acquire skill sets.
Hmm.
I know that a lot of people have been talking about side hustle, side hustle, side hustle. We also have to be careful in that because obviously there's a do not complete cost you have with your employers. So
Hmm.
those are some of the things you should look at, even for businesses. Sorry,
No problem.
you should try and diversify your revenue. If you have a product line, try and have other business income stream for that particular business.
Okay.
Case in point, if you have a construction business, you can think of saying, okay, I have a construction business. Why not do a short-let business?
Hmm.
Because construction can be a bit seasonal. Once I do short-let, um, I can get more inflow because a lot of people are doing short-let. A
Yeah.
lot of people
Yeah.
require short-let in terms of short-let apartments. The short-let
Apartments.
apartment would help me mitigate against seasonality of my construction business. If you are
Yes.
doing what kind of business? What kind of business? If you are doing buying and selling,
Hmm.
understand? Maybe you are selling orange, you have a big supermarket. You can just decide to say, okay, part of this supermarket, let me get someone that will be running a pharmacy here and he'll be selling
Hmm.
drugs. So if people are
Hmm.
not buying, people are going to buy drugs, obviously, because
Yeah. Yeah.
people need to take care of their health. So
Yes.
it's also diversifying your revenue stream. It's not as easy as it sounds. I'm aware of that, but
Okay.
as a business owner or as an individual, you need to make conscious effort to say, um, my business is seasonal. This this line, how do I expand? How do I diversify my revenue stream? Okay. And this is something a lot of Nigerian employers are used to, which answers this your question. A lot of them are
Okay.
used to cost cutting. You see, when they are trying to reduce battle inflation, they decide to
Mm,
start seeking employees, looking at who is we are cutting costs. I'm sure you hear that we are cutting costs. We are not going to be paying this particular allowance.
mm,
By 5 o'clock, we're putting up the gen. I'm sure we've heard
mm.
that, especially when diesel
Yeah.
cost was really high. You could see a lot
Yeah.
of companies saying, see, I don't know what you're doing. By 5 p.m., the gen is off. Everybody should leave the office. Do you understand? So
Mm,
you would can do some form of cost cutting measures,
mm.
but not
That's
employee.
mm.
You can look at your bottom line. Um,
Okay.
Stop stuff is stock up inventory. You have inventory, chain management, having good supply chain management. If you're having inputs, you have more than 2 to 3 vendors. There are creative ways of inventory management where
Okay.
you have, I'm sure for some people, you have a 30 to 60 day payment cycle. So you have people that will supply you goods and
Mm,
services, and you tell them, you supply me, but I have a 30 to 60 day payment cycle. So what that does is that I'll pay you after 30 or 60 days. This flows
mm,
into the next point of good cash flow management. Managing your cash flow, um, nothing like managing your cash flow. If there are lines, which is lines, overdraft lines, some of your financial banks can provide. A lot of
mm,
business owners in Nigeria, I've seen them, maybe it's the Nigerian factor or the African factor, or maybe because of our parents. I see some people that say, I'll never collect loan. I don't agree. Do you understand? Having
mm,
loan is good for your business. You are using other people's money to work. I can tell
mm,
you that for free that there is no top billion naira company in Nigeria that does
mm.
not take loan.
That
All
does
of
not take.
them are loan. All of them do take loans. Even banks that are banks that banks still have people that they collect money from. Do you understand?
Mm.
They
Yes.
need to
Yes.
have good it's called contingency funding planning. So
Mm,
having access to credit is also very good. Credit in the sense of from your suppliers, someone supplies me something, I tell you I'll pay you in 30 to 60 or 90 days. Even big companies, multinationals in Nigeria, if you
mm,
supply them services, they don't pay you instantly. They tell
mm,
you, "Oh, why we 30 to 60 or 90 days payment cycle? We
mm,
can only pay you after 90 days." So
mm.
you also have, these are part of cash flow management.
Yeah.
Then you also, because you receive the goods and you pay later, then you also
Later.
have automation. A lot of stuff are manual. If you automate some of your processes, you could find that you could save some form of savings for inflation, and this will
Mm.
reduce the number of employees you have. This is not good, but automation
Mm.
really helps. A lot of
Helps.
multinational institutions it has become a buzzword currently in the space of in the FMCG and financial institution space, even oil and gas,
Mm.
RPA, robotics process automation. So a lot of these institutions are trying to do robotic process automations where some of case in point, their customer care service, their finance team, HR, they are using robotics RPA to automate
Mm.
that process. So what that does is that you basically do not need a lot of people, posting, just reducing personnel and automating
Mm.
a lot of
Mm.
process. I think that I've given enough point. Any other
Honestly, you
thing?
have
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
And while you were speaking, thank you very, very, very much. You gave like quite a lot of tips. And I was actually going through our chats to see if we have questions. But just as you were speaking, I saw that you were already, pointing out those things that people were asking questions about. So it means we don't really need to like go back to them. But then if you have like, we can take one or two questions. So if you have questions, please let's take it before we go, because we're already getting towards the end of this fantastic educating webinar. Eniola Agbaoye, thumbs up to you. You're really an amazing speaker. Thank you so so much. I think nobody's is asking questions anymore, because we've basically touched base on every of our questions here. So we've really come to the end of our webinar. Eniola Agbaoye, please, can we see your face again before you finally go? Thank you so much. Really
Thank you.
appreciate your time here. We can't hear you. I can't hear you actually.
Can you hear me? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It was really
Okay, okay.
interesting being here.
Yes.